All right. Here we go. There we are. Good evening, everybody. This is the Behavioral Economics of Global Affairs. My name is Luis Maia, and it's very good to be here once more with João, Bruno, Tamires, André, Sara, Ronald, Raul, Brito, Mônica, Eduardo, Isaac, Elane, Girlene, Andréa Bezerra, Vicente, Pedro Barros, ó, quem está chegando aqui é Rafaela Cristine, Igor Braz, Gabriel Lima, Iago Correia, Arthur Vinícius e Elaine.
E Sajan também, professor.
Isaac e Sajan. Sajan, isso. All right, guys, it's very good to be here with you. This is the behavior economics, and we are not only learning about behavior economics, we are trying to address some of the most important issues of our societies in the 21st century, and we are having fun. We are practicing our English, our fluency in English. Now, I have always to ask you guys to let me know if I'm clear, okay? If you can hear me well, if you can understand me well. And it's always good to emphasize this. This is not a class for you that knows a lot of English, okay? This is a class for people to improve his or her ability in English, okay? Myself, I'm not a native speaker. That means I speak like Brazilian English. Here and there, I make some obvious mistakes. Later on, when I watch this video, I keep laughing at myself. I say, oh, come on, I don't believe you said that. So I make lots and lots of mistakes, and it's all right. We are not here to speak in perfect English. We are here just to try to express ourselves. Get used to expressions in English, okay? Então aqui, gente, não é para ninguém se estressar, mas se não estiver entendendo alguma coisa, não pode hesitar de levantar a mão, de me interromper, de falar, ah, Luiz, espera aí, volta aí, trocar uma ideia sobre este ou aquele aspecto. All right, but then again, let me ask again. I know that some of you, maybe lots of you, have not watched the last video that I shared with you, the video about mind space. Okay, it's a little longer than usual, this video. I think it's about 50 minutes, but believe me, please, it's worth. Okay, it's very important stuff. It is so important that even though you guys have not watched it, I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that subject just to get you, like, you know, feeling that you need to take a look at this, okay? All right, so let me share my screen here with you and show you the Behavioral Insight team. Think about this, guys. The British government decided to create an office with basically behavioral economists there. And these guys were there to help the government in developing more effective policies. Então, selecionou um bando de pesquisadores da área de ciências comportamentais, economistas comportamentais, neurocientistas, e falou, nos ajude aqui a tornar as nossas políticas públicas melhores. So they created this group, and the objectives were basically three. They wanted to make public services more cost-effective and easier for citizens to use. That's just the opposite of Brazil, right? Brazil, if you want to be helped in UPA, well, sometimes you have to wait for a long time. Sometimes you have to go through very hard situations in public transportation. it's hard to reach, to access medical services in some places in Brazil, right? So there they were trying to make it easier for citizens to access public services. The second thing, they want to improve the outcomes by introducing a more realistic model of human behavior to policy. Let me explain what that means. Most of the times when people develop new policies, they think that individuals are purely rational, completely deliberate about what they do and what they don't do. Quando as pessoas desenham políticas públicas, muitas vezes elas partem do pressuposto que todo mundo é racional, que todo mundo vai sempre agir de uma maneira plenamente racional, vai fazer o que é bem para si, vai sempre fazer aquilo que é bom. E não é assim. Muitas vezes a gente faz besteira, muitas vezes a gente faz errado, muitas vezes a gente adia fazer alguma coisa que a gente já precisava fazer há muito tempo. All right, so they said, well, let's look at what the human creature is, and let's try and prepare, plan policies that will actually help people. Então vamos tentar fazer políticas públicas que levem em conta que o ser humano não é assim tão racional, que ele comete erros, que ele tem dificuldades e tal. And the last objective of these guys was to enable people to make better choices for themselves. I know you have heard before this class. When you try to help people making better choices for themselves, what's the name of that? We have talked about this before. The name of this is nudge, right? Empurrãozinho. Empurrãozinho é quando a gente tenta ajudar as pessoas a fazerem melhores escolhas para elas mesmas. Não é para mim. Eu não vou ganhar mais dinheiro com isso. É para que as pessoas se cuidem melhor. Cuidem melhor dos seus interesses. All right. So, these guys created kind of a checklist. So when you see the word mind space, if I were to translate that to Portuguese, would be espaço mental. Mas espaço mental não quer dizer nada. Que diabo é mind space? The letters M-I-N-D, né? M-I-N-D, cada uma dessas letrinhas é uma espécie de item numa listinha para você tentar fazer políticas mais eficazes, para você fazer políticas que vão funcionar, que vão ajudar as pessoas, seja a cuidar da sua saúde, seja a se alimentar melhor, seja a cuidar melhor do seu dinheiro, seja a cuidar melhor da sua família, sei lá. Tá? Políticas públicas para tentar ajudar as pessoas a viverem melhor. All right, so just to give you a hint of what this is about, notice here that each letter that you can see in the word mind space, let me get this. Each letter that you can see in this word, it's here. M, I, N, D, S, P, A, C, E. So mind space is a way to remember each of those elements, okay? It's just a word that we use to remember those elements. Let me give you some examples because you guys will have to watch the video there to know all of them, okay? First, never forget that the messenger matters. Se você escutar uma mensagem sobre como cuidar do seu dinheiro e essa pessoa for alguém que você admira, for alguém que você gosta, que você sei lá, considera uma pessoa equilibrada, aquilo tem um impacto. Se você escutar essa mesma mensagem, a mesma mensagem vindo de alguém que você detesta, aquilo vai ter outra influência sobre você. All right, so we have to try and choose the right messenger to convey a specific information, to convey a specific message, ok? A escolha do mensageiro importa. Se você escolher a pessoa errada para falar de alguma coisa para a comunidade, você pode ter o efeito contrário do que você imaginava. So this is one important thing, and sometimes people forget. Sometimes people don't take that into consideration when they are preparing, planning some kind of policy, some kind of intervention to help people, okay? Let me give you another example here. Ego means ego, vaidade em português. Esse último aqui. We all act in ways that make us feel better about ourselves. Então, se eu quero ajudar uma comunidade a ser mais solidária, eu deveria premiar, valorizar, dar fama a uma pessoa que é mais caridosa, que ajuda mais pessoas na sociedade. Eu devo valorizar essas figuras. Eu vou massagear o ego delas, a vaidade delas. Porque outras pessoas vão falar, eu também quero ser valorizado, eu também quero ser. So, you may look at this and say, oh, come on, Luis, you're just trying to manipulate people. And that's not what this is about, okay, guys? This is just a matter of trying to get policies to work. Você está tentando falar assim, se eu vou gastar 200 mil reais para ir à comunidade, montar um stand, ensinar as pessoas sobre pressão arterial, sobre diabetes, deixa eu fazer esse checklist aqui, deixa eu ver se eu estou tomando todos os cuidados para que a minha política seja o máximo eficiente possível. All right. Okay, so now you guys know what I'm talking about. And if you won't, and I hope you do, you can go ahead and take a look at this thing, which is in a video that I posted for you maybe 3 or 4 days ago, okay? It's one of the videos that I posted the last few days. If you go there in the WhatsApp group, you're going to find it. And also, if you check the Google Classroom, you're going to see it there, ok? É o vídeo que eu gravei para vocês relativo à última sexta-feira, tá, gente? Tá bem detalhado, tá explicando passo a passo uma daquelas letrinhas, por que elas são importantes no desenho de políticas públicas. Ok. Questions so far? Let me see if I have any questions. Can you guys give me a minute? I'm going to have to reduce the temperature here in the room. It's very warm here. Just a second, please. All right, I'm back. Questions, guys, come on. Please raise your hand if you have a question. What I would ask myself if I were you? O que eu estaria me perguntando se eu fosse vocês? Oh, I didn't see my grade in the classroom. Yeah, I didn't post the grade for the 5th exercise in the classroom. I just sent you the email, okay, with the results. But I'm going to transfer the grades to the Google Classroom. What else would I be asking if I were you? When will be the next list of exercises, right? Yeah, I could be worried about that. So don't worry. I'm going to post it from tonight till tomorrow. I'm going to post the 6th list of exercise, okay? Eu vou colocar para vocês a 6ª lista de exercícios nesta noite, depois que a gente terminar a aula. Vou colocar o prazo, sei lá, até a próxima quinta-feira, para engolir lá na frente, tá certo? 6ª lista de exercício. Lembrando, hein? Antepenúltima. Vai ter a 6ª, 7ª e 8ª. All right? And when we get the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th, those will be the ones from which we calculate your second VA. A sua nota da segunda VA a gente vai calcular a partir dessas 4 últimas listas de exercícios, tá certo? Okay, any other question? All right, so let's proceed. Let's keep going. Let me share here some more class notes, the ones that we are calling weeks 11 and 12. Guys, come on, this expression here, aging, means envelhecimento, envelhecer. So why we are talking about aging again? Well, because those represent, that fact, that phenomenon represent both challenges and opportunities. It's good that we are getting older. We should celebrate that. But it also, we should pay attention to it because some things are just about to change and to change a lot, ok? Algumas coisas na sociedade, na nossa civilização, vão mudar bastante. Com uma sociedade em que metade das pessoas tem mais de 50 anos. Can you imagine that? A couple of decades, half of the people will be more than 50 years old. This is the first time in the history of mankind. Pela primeira vez na história da humanidade, a gente vai ter uma civilização em que mais da metade das pessoas tem mais de 50 anos. Now, look at me. I know I look like someone with, 49 years old, but I'm already 50. Eu tenho 50 anos. Diga lá, Vicente.
Ô, professor, mas essa longevidade também representa para a sociedade como um todo mais tempo de produtividade de cada cidadão, de cada indivíduo, né? Também.
Exactly. Yes.
A gente precisa, por exemplo, fazer, por exemplo, lá na Disney, que o pessoal coloca só o pessoal da terceira idade para executar algumas atividades que ainda dá, porque assim, a gente tem que imaginar que as pessoas estão envelhecendo, estão vivendo mais tempo, então elas ficam mais tempo produtivas, né?
Exatamente, Vicente. Elas não estão apenas vivendo mais. Elas estão se mantendo produtivas por mais tempo. Eu tenho um colega professor de economia que acabou de se aposentar com 75 anos. Alguém aqui teve aula com o professor Luiz Kerli? Levanta a mão aí. Alguém teve aula com o Luiz Kerli? Ó, o João teve, o Arthur teve. Quem mais? Professor Luiz Kerli. O André também teve aula com ele. Daniel. Pois bem, o professor Luiz Kerli acabou de se aposentar com 75 anos. O que ele foi fazer? Foi cuidar da engenharia. Junto com os irmãos dele, está tocando uma construtora lá na Paraíba. Comprando, botando prédio para cima, construindo prédio, construindo residência. 75 anos. O cara está cheio de gás, cheio de vontade. Antigamente, 75 anos, o cara estava de pijama, assistindo Ana Maria Braga, na frente da televisão de manhã até a noite. Things are changing, and this is good. I got you, Vicente. That's the point. It's good news, but we have to change a few things if you actually will take those opportunities, okay? A gente vai ter que mudar algumas coisas se a gente quiser realmente transformar essa mudança em oportunidades. Okay, so this is the topic. Let's have a look at what we got here for you. Oh, wait, yeah, there we go. The first video that we're going to watch is this guy coming and saying how societies can grow old better. What do you say we have a look at this video? O que vocês acham da gente assistir esse vídeo rapidinho agora? Bora?
Não é só, professor, acho uma boa.
Bora. Esse cara tem uma eloquência maravilhosa, cara. Vocês vão adorar. So let me stop here. And I'm going to share with you TED Talk. Como sociedades podem envelhecer melhor. Tá aqui. Agora eu vou compartilhar novamente a minha tela com vocês. E aí nós vamos dar play. Alright, alright, alright. Here we go. It's not what I meant. Okay. Great. Let's have a look at this guy. It's fascinating. His talk is one of the best I have seen.
To give me an idea how many of you here may find what I'm about to tell you a practical value, let me ask you please to raise your hands. Who here is either over 65 years old or hopes to live past age 65 or has parents or grandparents who did live or have lived past 65? Raise your hands, please. Okay, you are the people to whom my talk will be of practical value. The rest of you won't find my talk personally relevant, but I think that you'll still find this subject fascinating. I'm going to talk about growing older in traditional societies. The subject constitutes just one chapter of my latest book, which compares traditional, small, tribal societies with our large, modern societies with respect to many topics such as bringing up children, growing older, health, dealing with danger, settling disputes, religion, and speaking more than one language. Those tribal societies, which constituted all human societies for most of human history, are far more diverse than are our modern, recent big societies. All big societies that have governments and where most people are strangers to each other are inevitably similar to each other and different from tribal societies. Tribes constitute thousands of natural experiments in how to run a human society. They constitute experiments from which we ourselves may be able to learn. Tribal society shouldn't be scorned as primitive and miserable, but also shouldn't be romanticized as happy and peaceful. When we learn of tribal practices, some of them will horrify us, but there are other tribal practices which, when we hear about them, we may admire and envy and wonder whether we could adopt those practices ourselves. Most old people in the US end up living separately from their children and from most of their friends of their earlier years, and often they live in separate retirement homes for the elderly, whereas in traditional societies, older people instead live out their lives among their children, their other relatives, and their lifelong friends. Nevertheless, the treatment of the elderly varies enormously among traditional societies, from much worse to much better than in our modern societies. At the worst extreme, many traditional societies get rid of their elderly in one of four increasingly direct ways: by neglecting the elderly and not feeding or cleaning them until they die, or by abandoning them when the group moves, or by encouraging older people to commit suicide, or by killing older people. In which tribal societies do children abandon or kill their parents? It happens mainly under two conditions. One is in nomadic hunter-gatherer societies that often shift camp and that are physically incapable of transporting old people who can't walk, when the able-bodied younger people already have to carry their young children and all their physical possessions. The other condition is in societies living in marginal or fluctuating environments, such as the Arctic or deserts, where there are periodic food shortages, and occasionally there just isn't enough food to keep everyone alive. Whatever food is available has to be reserved for able-bodied adults and for children. To us Americans, it sounds horrible to think of abandoning or killing your own sick wife or husband or elderly mother or father. But what could those traditional societies do differently? They face a cruel situation of no choice. Their old people had to do it to their own parents, and the old people know what now is going to happen to them. At the opposite extreme, in treatment of the elderly, the happy extreme, are the New Guinea farming societies where I've been doing my field work for the past 50 years, and most other sedentary traditional societies around the world. In those societies, older people are cared for, they are fed, they remain valuable, and they continue to live in the same hut or else in a nearby hut near their children, relatives, and lifelong friends. There are two main sets of reasons for this variation among societies in old people. The variation depends especially on the usefulness of old people and on the society's values. First, as regards usefulness, older people continue to perform useful services. One use of older people in traditional societies is that they often are still effective at producing food. Another traditional usefulness of older people is that they are capable of babysitting their grandchildren, thereby freeing up their own adult children, the parents of those grandchildren, to go hunting and gathering food for the grandchildren. Still another traditional value of older people is in making tools, weapons, baskets, pots, and textiles. In fact, they're usually the people who are best at it. Older people usually are the leaders of traditional societies and the people most knowledgeable about politics, medicine, religion, songs, and dances. Finally, older people in traditional societies have a huge significance that would never occur to us in our modern literate societies, where our sources of information are books and the internet. In contrast, in traditional societies without writing, older people are the repositories of information. It's their knowledge that spells the difference between survival and death for their whole society in a time of crisis caused by rare events of which only the oldest people alive have had experience. Those, then, are the ways in which older people are useful in traditional societies. Their usefulness varies and contributes to variation in the society's treatment of the elderly. The other set of reasons for variation in treatment of the elderly is the society's cultural values. For example, there's particular emphasis on respect for the elderly in East Asia. Confucius's doctrine of filial piety, which means obedience, respect, and support for elderly parents. Cultural values that emphasize respect for older people contrast with the low status of the elderly in the US. Older Americans are at a big disadvantage in job applications. They're at a big disadvantage in hospitals. Our hospitals have an explicit policy called age-based allocation of healthcare resources. That sinister expression means that if hospital resources are limited, for example, if only one donor heart becomes available for transplant, or if a surgeon has time to operate on only a certain number of patients, American hospitals have an explicit policy of giving preference to younger patients over older patients on the grounds that younger patients are considered more valuable to society because they have more life ahead of them, even though the younger patients have fewer years of valuable life experience behind them. There are several reasons for this low status of the elderly in the US. One is our Protestant work ethic, which places high value on work, so older people who are no longer working aren't respected. Another reason is our American emphasis on the virtues of self-reliance and independence, so we instinctively look down on older people who are no longer self-reliant and independent. Still, a third reason is our American cult of youth, which shows up even in our advertisements. Ads for Coca-Cola and beer always depict smiling young people, even though old as well as young people buy and drink Coca-Cola and beer. Just think, what's the last time you saw a Coke or beer ad depicting smiling people 85 years old? Never. Instead, the American ads featuring white-haired old people are ads for retirement homes and pension planning. Well, what has changed in the status of the elderly today compared to their status in traditional societies? There have been a few changes for the better and more changes for the worse. big changes for the better include the facts that today we enjoy much longer lives, much better health in our old age, and much better recreational opportunities. Another change for the better is that we now have specialized retirement facilities and programs to take care of old people. Changes for the worse begin with the cruel reality that we now have more old people and fewer young people than at any time in the past. That means that all those old people are more of a burden on the few young people, and that each old person has less individual value. Another big change for the worse in the status of the elderly is the breaking of social ties with age, because older people, their children and their friends, all move and scatter independently of each other many times during their lives. We Americans move on the average every 5 years. Hence, our older people are likely to end up living distant from their children and the friends of their youth. Yet another change for the worse in the status of the elderly is formal retirement from the workforce, carrying with it a loss of work friendships and a loss of the self-esteem associated with work. Perhaps the biggest change for the worse is that our elderly are objectively less useful than in traditional societies. Widespread literacy means that they are no longer useful as repositories of knowledge. When we want some information, we look it up in a book or we Google it, instead of finding some old person to ask. The slow pace of technological change in societies means that what someone learns there as a child is still useful when that person is old, but the rapid pace of technological change today means that what we learn as children is no longer useful 60 years later. And conversely, we older people are not fluent in the technologies essential for surviving in modern society. For example, as a 15-year-old, I was considered outstandingly good at multiplying numbers because I had memorized the multiplication tables, and I know how to use logarithms, and I'm quick at manipulating a slide rule. Today, though, those skills are utterly useless because any idiot can now multiply 8-digit numbers accurately and instantly with a pocket calculator. Conversely, I, at age 75, am incompetent at skills essential for everyday life. My family's first TV set in 1948 had only 3 knobs that I could have: an on-off switch, a volume knob, and a channel selector knob. Today, just to watch a program on the TV set in my own house, I have to operate a 41-button TV remote that utterly defeats me. I have to telephone my 25-year-old sons and ask them to talk me through it while I try to push those wretched 41 buttons. What can we do to improve the lives of the elderly in the U.S. and to make better use of their value? That's a huge problem. In my remaining 4 minutes today, I can offer just a few suggestions. One value of older people is that they are increasingly useful as grandparents for offering high-quality child care to their grandchildren if they choose to do it, as more young women enter the workforce and as fewer young parents of either gender stay home as full-time caretakers of their children. Compared to the usual of paid babysitters and daycare centers, grandparents offer superior, motivated, experienced child care. They've already gained experience from raising their own children. They usually love their grandchildren and are eager to spend time with them. Unlike other caregivers, grandparents don't quit their job because they found another job with higher pay looking after another baby. A second value of older people is paradoxically related to their loss of value as a result of changing world conditions and technology. At the same time, older people have gained in value today precisely because of their unique experience of living conditions that have now become rare because of rapid change, but that could come back. For example, only Americans now in their 70s or older today can remember the experience of living through a Great Depression, the experience of the World War, and agonizing whether or not dropping atomic bombs would be more horrible than the likely consequences of not dropping atomic bombs. Most of our current voters and politicians have no personal experience of any of those things, but millions of older Americans do. Unfortunately, all of those terrible situations could come back. Even if they don't come back, we have to be able to plan for them on the basis of the experience of what they were like. Older people have that experience, younger people don't. The remaining value of older people that I'll mention involves recognizing that while there are many things that older people can no longer do, there are other things that they can do better than younger people. A challenge for society is to make use of those things that older people are better at doing. Some abilities, of course, decrease with age. Those include abilities at tasks requiring physical strength and stamina, and the power of novel reasoning in a circumscribed situation, such as figuring out the structure of DNA best left to scientists under the age of 30. Conversely, valuable attributes that increase with age include experience, understanding of people and human relationships, ability to help other people without your own ego getting in the way, and interdisciplinary thinking about large databases, such as economics and comparative history, best left to scholars over the age of 60. Hence, older people are much better than younger people at supervising, administering, advising, strategizing, teaching, synthesizing, and devising long-term plans. I've seen this value of older people with so many of my friends in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s who are still active as investment managers, farmers, lawyers, and doctors. Many traditional societies make better use of their elderly and give their elderly more satisfying lives than we do in modern big societies. Paradoxically, nowadays, when we have more elderly people than ever before, living healthier lives and with better medical care than ever before, old age is in some respects more miserable than ever before. The lives of the elderly are widely recognized as constituting a disaster area of modern American society. We can surely do better by learning from the lives of the elderly in traditional societies. But what's true of the lives of the elderly in traditional societies is true of many other features of traditional societies as well. Of course, I'm not advocating that we all give up agriculture and metal tools and return to a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. There are many obvious respects in which our lives today are far happier than those in small traditional societies. Examples, our lives are longer, materially much richer, and less plagued by violence than are the lives of people in traditional societies. But there are also things to be admired about people in traditional societies and perhaps to be learned from them. Their lives are usually socially much richer than our lives, although materially poorer. Their children are more self-confident, more independent, and more socially skilled than are our children. They think more realistically about dangers than we do. They almost never die of diabetes, heart disease, stroke, and the other non-communicable diseases that will be the causes of death of almost all of us in this room today. Features of the modern lifestyle predispose us to those diseases, and features of the traditional lifestyle protect us against them. Those are just some examples of what we can learn from traditional society. That you'll find it as fascinating to read about traditional societies as I found it to live in those societies. Thank you.
All right, guys, let me see what you got from this. Did you like the presentation?
Professor, o vídeo quebra bem esse paradigma de que necessariamente a modernidade só traz vantagens, né? A gente tem, ele deixa bem claro isso, né? Que em termos comportamentais, apesar da gente ter avançado muito tecnologicamente, a gente perdeu nesse aspecto, né?
Opa. Sorry. É isso mesmo, Vicente. Ele traz em especial em relação à maneira como em determinadas sociedades tradicionais, sociedades tribais, os idosos acabam assumindo papéis sociais relevantes no cuidado com os filhos, no armazenamento da informação, na experiência, né, como fonte de aconselhamento, fonte de cultura. De alguma forma, a gente acaba considerando que aquelas fontes não são mais confiáveis nas sociedades modernas. O que mais? Quem mais gostaria de comentar sobre o vídeo? O que percebeu? How did you understand the English? Was it too hard? Era muito difícil entender o inglês dele ou deu para ler pelas legendas? Como é que vocês absorveram aí o conteúdo?
O inglês dele é bem compassado, né? Dá pra gente entender bem. E o societies dele é bem incisivo, né? Aí a gente acaba se acostumando.
Ele repete umas palavras, societies, people, societies. Uma forma carregada, assim, de se expressar.
Isso.
Mas a legenda estava dando para ler também? Deu para acompanhar pela legenda?
Bom, para mim travou um pouco. Não sei se é a sua internet, professor, mas de resto deu para entender.
Opa, deixa eu ver se travou para mais pessoas aí. Levanta a mãozinha se o vídeo travou para
Para mim
mais
estava
pessoas.
bom, professor.
Estava funcionando, né? Estava tranquilo, estava travando para mim também, o Igor disse. O Raul também travou o vídeo um pouco. All right, guys. So, I think the messages important that we should take from this are essentially 3 or 4. Let me have a look at them with you, okay? First, age means in modern societies knowledge, wisdom, rarely, okay? We very hardly associate older people with wiser people. Cada vez mais a gente não considera que os idosos são sábios. A utilidade, usefulness. We have to remember that these people are extremely useful, especially for family services. Então, as famílias hoje relutam em deixar as crianças sob cuidado de avós e de avós, mas devem fazê-lo. Essa é uma maneira de conferir valor para essas pessoas, ao mesmo tempo que você está reconhecendo o papel que eles têm, a capacidade que eles têm de amar, de cuidar. We have to think about dependence for weakness. Então, a gente precisa parar de pensar que dependência é fraqueza. A gente precisa entender que, no final das contas, todos somos dependentes, né? E que, no caso dos idosos, é verdade que eles vão ficar um pouco mais dependentes, mas isso, se levado com uma certa equilíbrio, pode ser um acordo, pode ser um contrato, pode ser uma forma negociada de codependência, de a gente depender dos idosos para algumas coisas e eles dependerem da gente para outras, tá? There is this danger that we consider older people a burden because their knowledge is always obsolete. But the fact is that these people have experiences that we have never had. And amazingly, this moment in life, we have more and more younger people deprived of very important social skills. Não é só uma questão da pandemia, gente. Cada vez mais a gente está vendo pessoas novas, pessoas jovens, com a capacidade muito baixa de se comunicar, de resolver conflitos, de mediar conflitos para solucioná-los, de se comunicar espontaneamente com desconhecidos. As pessoas jovens estão perdendo habilidades sociais. Isso é muito, muito preocupante. E uma verdadeira grande vantagem das pessoas mais idosas é que elas têm um enorme estoque dessas habilidades, na sua maioria, não todos, obviamente. All right, so this is a provocative course, okay? It's to show you one old guy that knows a lot, and he provokes us to, to rethink the way we consider the social role of older people. Well, we have to do that. Yes, we do. Take a look at this. This is life expectancy in the whole world. Now, notice that here we have countries like Japan, South Korea, and United Kingdom. These people now tend to live up to 8 years old or more, okay? So anyone who is born in Japan today is expected to live more than 80 years old. If that is true for the richest countries in the world, that is trying to becoming true even to poor countries. In India, we also have this upward trend in life expectancy. Even in countries like Ethiopia or South Africa, we are seeing this trend all over the world. People are living better and that living longer, and that is a fact. That's happening. We have to pay attention to this because this is too large a change. Now, I know that I believe that all of you know what an age pyramid is. But let's have a look at this one more time, okay? So here, this gray area here is showing you how large percentage of society is within age level here, okay? So when you have this triangle here representing the 1950s, we are saying that, let's see, about wait. How is that? That is the number of people who are 0 to 4 years old and 5 to 9 years old is much larger. This area here is much larger than people who are, for example, 65 years old or more. So it's just a very small part of society that gets to be older than 65 years old. So that's what happened in the 50s. On the left-hand side, you see male. And on the right-hand side, you see female, okay? So it's kind of symmetric, even though female women live a bit longer than male. But notice what happens by 2010. So we are talking 60 years later. The society changes already a lot. We still have lots and lots of people younger, but you have like a growing share of society living more than 65 years old. And notice what we expect to see when we get to 2100. Now, check this out. You're going to have a whole, maybe 40% of society over the age of 60. And the amount of people who are younger, it's not getting any bigger. So the amount of people with ages 60 and above is getting larger and larger. So a larger share of the population will be older. That is clearly predictable. We have to trust that those projections are very, very safe. We are pretty much sure about that. And that means the whole world starts adapting to it. Until a few years ago, maybe a couple of decades ago, China was a country recognized all over the world. Its policy of forbidding people to have more than one kid. Então, até uns 20 anos atrás, o mundo inteiro se lembrava do nome da China como sendo aquele país em que se proíbe as pessoas de terem mais de um filho. Now, check this out. China now has a policy to boost birth rate, to stimulate people to have three children. You see? Now they want the clear opposite. They just realized that the change was too fast, and adapting to such a fast-changing reality, it's not going to be easy. So they're saying we have to stimulate, we have to give money to people if they want to have more kids. So it's quite a reverse. It's like 180 degrees change in the direction of public policy. Então, os caras fizeram uma virada de 180 graus. Isso não está acontecendo só lá, isso está acontecendo no Brasil, isso está acontecendo na China, isso está acontecendo em todo lugar. Now, this paper that I found from the World Health Organization, it talks about golden aging. So what we should look at when we think about challenges and opportunities coming from an older society, okay? So let me read this diagram here with you because this is very important stuff, okay? Please pay attention to this. In this diagram, we have like 4 areas. This here, the upward left-hand area, we are talking about a challenge, something that is hard to overcome, and something that is related to demography. Uma tendência demográfica e um desafio, tá? No oposto, no quadrante oposto, a gente tem um assunto que é relacionado à economia e que é uma oportunidade. Então, em cada um desses quadrantes, a gente vai estar falando de economia, se for esses dois aqui de baixo, e de demografia, se for os dois aqui de cima, tá? Se for para o lado direito, a gente vai estar falando de uma oportunidade. Se for para o lado esquerdo, a gente está falando de um desafio. So let me clean up this thing because it's too messy. Let's start with this, okay? Demography and a challenge. What we got here? We have low fertility. What does that mean? Well, it means that families are having fewer children, okay? Fewer kids are born. Now, this is a challenge from 3 areas. First, we have to address inequality, how we can do that, what is the problem. We have behavioral responses, how we can think about behavior. And we have policy priorities, what the government should do. Now, think about this. The inequality means that it is good if we have more children, but it's easier for you if you are wealthy. Se você for rico, a escolha de ter mais filhos é uma opção. Se você for pobre, você não tem essa opção. Ter mais filhos significa submeter seus filhos a condições muito graves. All right, so this is a challenge coming from demography. So what is the behavior we have to look at here? We have to look at how people plan the size of the family. A gente tem que pensar o que leva as famílias a escolher ter mais ou menos filhos. We have to understand, study this issue. And from a policy perspective, what the government should do, well, the obvious response is that we have to help, especially women who decide to have more kids. A gente pune a mulher que resolve sair do mercado de trabalho para ter filho. A gente precisa, como sociedade, fazer o contrário. Se a gente não fizer isso, cada vez mais a gente vai ter a sociedade ficando velha e menos pessoas novas para cuidar da sociedade, para cuidar dos empregos, para cuidar da produção. Então, o benefício de um filho não é apenas o benefício do amor que ele traz para uma família, é um benefício social. Se é um benefício social, o governo deveria estimular. Como é que o governo estimula isso? Ora, no Brasil, a gente tem licença maternidade de 6 meses. I know, many times this thing doesn't work. But in law, that is what we want to work, right? Now, let me give you this number, and I promise you that this is true. That is what my wife experienced when we had our first daughter, okay? In the United States, your leave, your period, you have to leave your job as you had a kid is 45 days. A licença maternidade nos Estados Unidos é de 45 dias. Não chega a 2 meses. This is completely unacceptable. I mean, what you're trying to do here is to punish women who decide to have more kids. And as a society, we have to do exactly the opposite. So we have to create laws, we have to create social programs to somehow help people who decide to have more kids. Então, se tem um Bolsa Família, que sustenta famílias de baixa renda, deveria ter um Bolsa Criança para qualquer mulher, de qualquer faixa de renda, que resolve sair do mercado de trabalho para passar 1 ano, 2 anos cuidando de uma criança. Se a gente não fizer o estímulo, a pessoa vai optar pela carreira dela. All right, so you can see that each of those areas in the diagram will present you a challenge or an opportunity. We'll talk about how inequality plays a role in that situation. We'll tell you how you have to think about the behavioral aspects of the issue. And then we'll tell you what the government should do. So let's have a look at the second case here. The second one here, we have from an economic perspective, still from a demographic perspective, but now we are talking about an opportunity, something good, okay? So we are having here people living longer. So here what we got is that expression that Vicente told us in the beginning of the class. Quando a gente estava falando lá no início da aula, o Vicente falou assim, não, mas as pessoas viverem mais, isso também é um benefício. All right, but let's have a look at this. How does inequality plays a role here? Well, we have an unequal access to health facilities, for access to health care. So we have to think about not everybody have access to a doctor or to the right medicine. If you don't have money, it's hard to get the right treatment for some diseases. So this is how inequality will play a role in the fact that society is living longer, okay? What are the behavioral aspects we have to pay attention? Well, people can take care of their health before they get old. Nós temos que nos preparar para envelhecer antes de envelhecer. A gente tem que desenvolver hábitos de caminhada, de boa alimentação, antes de ser velho. Porque depois não dá tempo para arrumar, depois não dá tempo para consertar uma vida inteira feita de bobagem, de má alimentação e de sedentarismo. So we have to pay attention to the behavioral aspect of that. If people will live longer, we have to be careful with our machine here, our biological machine, as we are getting older, and that's a behavioral aspect, okay? Now, from a policy perspective, what would the government do to help? We have to talk about healthcare reforms, okay? In many, many places of the world, including in Brazil, poor people don't have access to treatment for many, many diseases. Então, a gente, apesar da gente ter um sistema único de saúde, apesar da gente ter melhorado nos últimos 30 anos, a gente ainda tem muita gente fora do sistema único de saúde. Muita gente sem acesso à medicação, sem acesso a fazer os exames. It's very common in Brazil. You go to a doctor, the doctor tells you that you need some sort of exam, and when you try to set up a date for the exam, you only will get the exam in 6 months. Well, in 6 months, I may be dead. And this thing happens in Brazil all the time. We can't go on like this. We have to reform this system, okay? All right, so you can see how this diagram is spectacular, can't you? We are talking about profound knowledge, and it's somehow synthesized in this diagram. Let me clean the things up here a little bit again. Let's talk about this challenge here from an economic perspective, okay? So it is a challenge and an economic perspective. What we are talking about, fiscal pressure. That means gastos do governo. Os gastos públicos tendem a crescer. Uma sociedade que envelhece é uma sociedade que exige mais gastos do governo. So, how inequality plays a role here? Well, if we have a very unequal society in terms of income, that problem gets more accentuated when people get older. A desigualdade é mais grave entre os velhos do que na média da população. Yeah, so, I mean, it's more of a problem when you're talking about older population, the population of older people. How can we think about behavior about this? Well, people shouldn't try and retire so soon. So we have to think about how to save more and how to work longer periods. A gente não gosta quando fala de reforma da Previdência, porque fala, eu ia me aposentar quando eu tinha 65 anos, agora eu vou ter que trabalhar até os 75. E a gente fica com raiva quando a gente escuta essa notícia. Well, it turns out that this is going to be true in Brazil, in Chile, in Paraguay, and in the United States. Não tem jeito, nós não podemos mais ter uma sociedade em que as pessoas se aposentam aos 60 anos. Nós precisamos pensar na participação das pessoas no mercado de trabalho até os 70. E nós temos que aumentar a taxa de poupança. Cada um de nós precisa fazer mais poupança, já que a gente vai viver mais anos à frente. It's hard to adopt those behaviors, but we are going to need them. Okay? And how the government can help in this? Well, it's not exactly help, but they have to move towards pension reforms. Guys, let me tell you this. If you take a plane today and go to France, you're going to see huge strikes, people on the streets protesting against pension reforms. They just don't accept. This thing is happening all over the world. As pessoas mais velhas não estão aceitando a ideia de reforma da Previdência. Não é só no Brasil, não é só na França, é em todo lugar do mundo. And we're going to have to do that. We don't have enough money to pay for a much larger number of older people. A gente vai ter que reformar esses sistemas de pensão, senão eles vão quebrar. E isso está acontecendo no Brasil, na China, na Noruega, na Alemanha, em todo lugar. So this is a global issue, okay? Somebody raised their hand. Go ahead. Let me see who is that. Isaac, go ahead, Isaac. Pode falar, Isaac.
Vou fazer um comentário rápido aqui. Eu acho que a questão não é bem aceitar a reforma da Previdência, né? Quando eu comecei a trabalhar, eu me aposentaria com 25 anos de trabalho. Passou a 30, passou a 35, agora para 40. Eu acho isso aí aceitável. Se está aumentando a expectativa de vida, consequentemente, a gente tem que trabalhar mais, né? Até para poder ajudar naquela questão ali que o senhor mostrou anteriormente, da pirâmide demográfica, né? Porque a base vai afunilando e não tem como sustentar quem está em cima.
Uhum.
Agora, eu acho que a grande problemática da questão é onde estão mexendo. Praticamente mexem nas aposentadorias mais baixas, né? Privadas, que o máximo é R$ 7.500, né? E muitas outras carreiras aí, a gente vê pessoas se aposentando 30, 40, 50 mil reais aos 50 anos de idade. Eu acho que é uma questão
Justiça, né?
que angustia um pouco. Eu acho que não é bem não aceitar a Previdência, é a forma como é que ela é feita. Não é não aceitar, como é que se diz, a mudança, mas sim da forma que está sendo feita.
I got your point, Isaac. You're right. And I mean, you have like privileges, you know, just a few people who have like very, very special retirement schemes. Então, como é que algumas pouquíssimas pessoas têm esses sistemas de pensão completamente desiguais, né? Então, só para dar um exemplo de um político, né? Um político, ele é eleito, se ele ficar 8 anos na Câmara ou no Senado, ele tem aposentadoria garantida do salário integral dele. Quer dizer, não faz o menor sentido. Por que a gente tem que trabalhar 35 anos, 40 anos, e esse cara com 8 anos garante salário integral?
E ainda tem um agravante, né? Tanto funcionário público, seja federal, estadual, funcionário privado, ele tem que trabalhar, né? E o político é uma opção dele se candidatar, não chega a fazer nada e tem todas essas benesses.
I understand. Yeah, I agree with you, Isaac. I think people are protesting because they don't see like a proportional contribution of all the members of society, right? Parece que a contribuição para a reforma está caindo sobre os mais pobres e não está caindo proporcionalmente sobre os mais ricos.
Justamente.
Yeah, I got your point. Yeah, I think this is a huge problem. All right, but then again, we are going to have to move that way, you know, all over the world. People have to understand it is not like going against anyone. It's we all have to change. Okay, now the one here.
Okay.
Pode falar. Quer completar?
Ok, professor. Não. Muito obrigado.
Legal, obrigado também. All right, so let's have this last one here. Now we are talking about an economic aspect, and we are talking about a good thing, opportunity, okay? So this last one here, we are talking about productivity improvements. But let me stop here and explain what we mean about productivity improvements, okay? Now think about this. If you have like an older guy performing some task and a younger guy, who will think that will finish first? Se você pensar um cara mais velho, um cara mais novo, os dois fazendo a mesma tarefa, quem é que vai terminar mais rápido? The younger guy, right? O normal é a gente pensar que o cara mais novo vai terminar mais rápido. que ele seria mais eficaz, mais produtivo. But that's not the point we are trying to look at here. We are talking about productivity in terms of how much production a person can get in his entire life, his or her, right? Think about this. You studied for 4 years at Rural, and then you got the diploma, you are an economist, or you are like a consumption scientist, or you are like a business administrator. Você trabalhou 4 anos, estudou 4 anos na Rural. Antigamente, você pegava aqueles 4 anos e produzia para a sociedade por mais 30. Agora, você vai pegar esses 4 anos de investimento e vai produzir por mais 40. Então, o uso que se faz desses 4 anos de investimento de educação vai ser muito maior. Mesmo que lá no final você não esteja entregando no mesmo ritmo, mas você está acrescentando a quantidade que você entrega à sociedade. Is somebody there with the hand up? Go ahead, Isaac. You have a comment. Pode falar, Isaac, estou te ouvindo. Ou você...
Não, professor, acenei aqui sem querer.
Tá bom, tá bom. All right, so when we're talking about productivity improvement in this case, we are not talking about older people working faster. That's not our point. That would be absurd. We are talking here about the fact that if you live longer, you're going to get, as from one person, from one individual, from one worker, you're going to get more work in throughout his career, his or her career, okay? So we are delivering more. We are delivering more results. Now let's think about how inequality plays a role here. Oh, that's one is obvious. We have increasing real wages. Então, as pessoas estão exigindo salários cada vez maiores para desenvolver determinadas funções. Então, a gente tem uma desigualdade muito grande nos salários, tem profissões que recebem muito por hora, tem outras que mal o suficiente para sobreviver, tem uma enorme desigualdade lá. Now, we have to think about behavior. We have to understand that older people have different advantages as members of the workforce. Então, a gente precisa reconhecer o valor das pessoas mais velhas para uma equipe. Porque uma equipe não é boa só se ela é rápida. Ela pode ser boa se ela não comete erros, se ela tem mais experiência, se ela consegue reagir a fenômenos que são raros, que são coisas que só advêm com experiência. All right, so we have to understand that the abilities of older people are not useless. The opposite of that. They are increasingly important because we have like younger generations coming and they have nothing about wars. They have not lived through a depression. They have, some of them had never experienced the pandemic. Muita gente que passou por essa pandemia já tinha passado por outra lá atrás. Estava um pouco mais preparado por isso. Right. And how we have to deal with that from a policy perspective, we have to stop thinking that education is just for a moment in our life. Okay? Education is something that we have to invest all over our working life. A gente precisa ter educação continuada. As pessoas precisam, todos nós precisamos atualizar os nossos conhecimentos de tempos em tempos, adquirir novos, sob risco da gente ficar obsoleto. Therefore, we have to reform our educational system. So from a policy perspective, that's the way we should move, okay? Now, I don't know about you, but this diagram is just like an entire course. It's like a whole discipline about old society. Se a gente dava para escrever todo um curso de graduação, uma disciplina só com esse diagrama, porque são assuntos que estão muito, muito sintetizados ali. 4 aspectos interessantíssimos do processo de envelhecimento da nossa sociedade. Ok? All right. Let me erase this thing a little bit. Let me clean up the things here and move on. I'm just about to finish. It's already like 9:45. Let me just skip through these slides here and go all the way to the end. Later on, you can have a look at this, okay? But I want to skip those things. I will return to them later. Let me just go back here to these 2 guys. First one is this guy here, Dan Goldstein. And he's talking about the battle between your present and your future self. Então, esse cara fala assim, dentro de cada um de nós tem uma batalha entre o Luiz Maia de hoje e o Luiz Maia de daqui a 30 anos. Essas 2 criaturas querem coisas diferentes hoje. O Luiz Maia de hoje quer que eu saia para balada, que eu beba demais, que eu não me preocupe com fazer ginástica, que eu coma o que for mais gostoso. O Luiz Maia, de 75 anos, está falando assim, não, Luiz, tu tem que dormir cedo, tu tem que comer menos, tem que cuidar do seu peso, tem que comer mais fruta, mais verdura. All right, so all of us, we have this struggle. And that thing will affect not only our health, but our financial life. Essa batalha entre o eu de hoje e o eu do futuro, todos nós vivemos. Aí vem esse cara, Daniel Goldstein, and say, how can we deal with that? Well, there are 2 ways we can deal with that. First one, we can create commitment devices. Então, a gente pode criar dispositivos de compromisso. So, let me give you an example of this. If you just take your wallet, take your credit card, and leave at home before going to the streets, you are preventing yourself from falling in a trap. Se você, ao sair de casa, sai sem o seu cartão de crédito, o dinheiro que você tiver aqui, ó, no meu caso, eu tenho 50 reais na minha carteira. Se eu tiver que gastar alguma coisa, o máximo que eu vou gastar é 50 reais. But, if I'm carrying this guy here with me, well, anything can happen. I can look at this shirt or these shoes and say, oh, I need those shoes, and then I can spend more money than I should. So if you leave your credit card at home, what you're doing is like you are creating this commitment device. Você criou um dispositivo de compromisso que você se protegeu de você mesmo. All right, people do that, for example, when they sign for retirement plans, private retirement plans. Quando você compra um plano de aposentadoria privado, você está fazendo um compromisso. Você está se amarrando com um compromisso. All right, this is one way to go. The other way to go is that we have to think that visualization can help. So, if we were to observe the consequences of our decision now, then we can make better choices. Então, se eu pudesse olhar para o meu orçamento, cada vez que eu recebo meu salário, como que eu gasto, e se eu pudesse ver que essa escolha, o que ela significa para o meu aperreio daqui a 30 anos, de falta de grana, aí, se eu puder visualizar isso, eu posso falar assim, não, eu vou tomar melhores decisões agora. All right, so this guy proposes these 2 solutions, okay? First is commitment devices, then second one, visualization. Go ahead, Iago. You have a question or a comment? Pode falar, Iago. Iago, tá me ouvindo? Tinha uma pergunta? Alô, alô? I don't think so. Oh, but then again. So this is a very interesting video too, guys. You have the name of the video here, the battle between your present and your future self. And you can find this video in our Google Classroom. And I'm also gonna send you the link for this video in our WhatsApp group, ok? Vou mandar o link desse vídeo para vocês lá no grupo de WhatsApp. E a última coisa que eu queria falar só para terminar a nossa conversa, this guy here, Shlomo, he's also talking about saving. How can we save for the future? And he has this very interesting discussion about how hard it is for us to save. É difícil para todo mundo guardar dinheiro para aposentadoria, em qualquer lugar do mundo. Mais uma vez, a gente tem as tentações no presente, a tendência a deixar para amanhã e tudo mais. Right, so the solution that this guy proposes is very interesting. He says, okay, you have to do like this. Whenever you have a raise, your income goes up, go ahead and save a little bit more. Então, a ideia dele é falar assim, não tente agora se penalizar e tirar uma fatia maior do seu orçamento para guardar na poupança, não. Faça o seguinte, cada vez que você tiver um aumento de renda, e o seu salário aumentar, dedica uma parte do aumento para a poupança. Now, if you do that, you're still going to feel like you're having a larger income, but you are saving as you go. Okay, so if you simulate the numbers, if all of us were to do that, we would be just fine when we get like 67, 70 years old. We would have money enough to pay for our medical bills and all of that, okay? Então, ele mostra lá por simulações, se a gente, a cada vez que a nossa renda aumenta, a gente pegar o aumento de renda e separar um pedacinho para fazer poupança todo mês, a gente não está sacrificando o que a gente já tem. A gente está sacrificando aquilo que a gente aumentou. Então, a gente continua tendo uma sensação de orçamento melhor e a gente consegue ao longo do tempo para fazer a poupança suficiente. All right, I'm also going to send the link for this talk, so you guys will also receive the opportunity to watch this guy. Saving for tomorrow, tomorrow. That's the name of his talk, okay? Poupando para o amanhã, amanhã. That's the name of the idea, all right? Okay, guys, I'm going to stop this presentation here. I'm going to stop recording, but I'm going to be here for a few more minutes if you want to ask a question or anything like that, okay? Obrigado, pessoal, para todos vocês.